What's going on, everyone? We've been talking a lot about set 6. We've been talking a lot about meta. What's going to be good, what you should be playing, what you should be trying out. But I know a lot of you don't want to be bringing your Sabines and your Kiras to the local tournaments or even just in general. So we're going to talk about the top 5 off-meta decks. These are decks that still have some power to them. You can completely crush a set. You can do some absolutely incredible things, but are a little bit less maybe consistent or less powerful than some of the other meta options. But in my opinion, probably a little bit more fun. There's going to be some links down below to the deck list. We're going to go through all of them. A big thank you to my patrons over on Patreon, where, well, some of you have gotten to see me mess around with some of these lists. And let's dive into our first one today. Starting us off, we've got Han set for red. Now, if you've seen some of my previous videos on the channel, some of these decks may look very familiar. I have played a lot of these ones, and I've kind of adjusted them afterwards to get a little bit of a better result, hopefully. And this one is actually just incredible, especially with some new additions. It could do some absolutely incredible things. Now, this is definitely a space-focused deck. You're not really going to be deploying a lot of ground units. You've got C3PO to help you draw some cards, and you've got Cassian as another ground unit. Everything else is either a pilot or space unit for the most part, and you're just kind of going very, very wide. Han Solo's flip allows you to reset, basically get back resources based on how many odd costed units you have on the battlefield. Han counts himself rather, and that means that you already get 1 back, but ideally you're getting 5 resources back when you flip Han, and you can actually utilize those with some new cards such as Sudden Ferocity. Sudden Ferocity is an amazing new addition, but the most fun thing about this deck is you're deploying a bunch of space units. You're kind of just going with your game plan because you have so many cheap space units to deploy. If you're really wanting to bring something that's actually gonna have a good matchup against control players, well, this actually does have a pretty good matchup as long as you draw into a decent hand and have a bunch of those early to deploy space units. You've got Poe to draw you back some cards, C3PO to draw you some cards. Stay on Target is a card I added afterwards with all the vehicle units we're playing, being able to draw more cards, getting use out of those resources we're resetting with Han. We've got Shadow Collective Camp to draw some cards. For those of you that don't want to be dealing with Tarkin Town, who wants to be playing that? That's too meta. Too meta. And we've got a bunch of pilots to really, really pump up the game plan. Han Solo, one such pilot. And of course, with the new Sudden Ferocity, being able to deploy Han Solo, playing maybe a couple 1-drops, or maybe a C3PO, or maybe a pilot like Poe, or maybe even just deploying Cassian straight up from your resource pile, spending all 5 resources, deploying Han, being able to ready up those resources again, and then maybe deploy Sudden Ferocity afterwards, and then follow that up with a surprise strike or stay on target. I mean, you could do some incredible 10 resource turns on turn 4. And that's the exciting thing about Han. And between Shadow Collective Camp, C3PO, Stay on Target, Poe, you're gonna have the cards to be able to do that alongside the plot cards like Sudden Ferocity and smuggle cards like Cassian Andor. That's the beauty of the list. It doesn't really feel like you run out of cards. One of the more important things about this list, though, is to make sure you're using Han's action properly. It is a little bit confusing when you read it, but basically you need to have 2 cards, the top card and the card you're choosing to attack with, have odd costs, and then for them to have different odd costs. So if you want to get that +1 power, if you reveal a 1-drop, try to attack with a 3-drop. If you reveal a 3-drop, try to attack with a 1-drop. Honestly, when you get used to it, it does kind of become second nature. We even have the new addition of Ebon Hawk to attack in for a staggering 6 damage with the Han ability if you happen to have a heroism unit, and that can do some work as well. But a lot of fun, a lot of card draw, and a lot of resources for some explosive turns and some pretty effective results. Moving on to a deck that has been consistently one that has kind of just been in that echelons of off meta tier since set 1. We've got Grand Inquisitor Blue. Now, this one is going to be an interesting one because this one also includes the Infinite Combo, where you have Darth Treya and Tragedy of Plagueis. This is kind of something that you can choose to add into your Grand Inquisitor list, whether you want to go that direction or not. It's also something you might want to keep in the sideboard for specific matchups that really can't deal with it all that well. I've had success in both variations, but in general, they're just a lot of newer cards and a lot of cards that can really, really ramp up your game plan here. Cards like Academy Disciplinarian, cards like Lost Jedi, Newt Gunray, even Republic Oryx Starfighter being a 4 powered ready up 3-cost space unit, all of which are pretty solid. Of course, with the Darth Tray, you have that dynamic of just being able to randomly end the game if your opponent doesn't have an answer, but realistically, you just have a lot of threat as you go along. If you choose not to go with the Treya variants, you can put Treya and Tragedy Plagueis in the sideboard, probably take out the Resilience, as that's kind of more for the Treya combo and try to get a little bit more value, or you can choose to keep it in. I personally really enjoy Bolstered Endurance, especially on cards like Fifth Brother or Lost Jedi in those particular circumstances, getting, maybe playing Lost Jedi on turn 1, turn 2 playing Academy Disciplinarian, readying up the Lost Jedi, getting a, 2 powered unit, but then putting a Bolstered Endurance on Lost Jedi, getting a 3 power, readying up with Grand Inquisitor can make it a 5 powered double readied up unit. I mean, that can be incredible. Of course, you still have some very, very powerful cards from the earlier sets, things like Scout Bike Pursuer and High-Low Bond Enforcer that are great on turn 1. Cards like Scimitar, more recently, getting a 5 power, 6 powered attacker in the Space Arena as a 4-cost unit immediately, and even new additions like Punishing One, being able to most often be readied up as a 5 to 6 powered unit as a space unit when it comes down, so you're able to kind of ping a couple of units here and there. This one, always aggressive, always something that some decks just cannot deal with. I mean, you can have some absurd turns with this list where your opponent's just like, what do I even do? It also works pretty well against control since you're getting damage immediately from our units, and the 1-for-1 removal can't always deal with everything immediately enough to, well, prevent them from taking damage. But there are a lot of ways you can go with this one. This is just one option with the infinite combo attached. Probably one of my favorite lists so far in the new set. We've got Double Green Mon Mothma. Now, you all have seen the Double Green Rex with the Unity of Purpose. This is another Unity of Purpose deck, and Unity of Purpose can be absolutely broken. This is probably the best deck on the list up against control matchups. You just have so many cards that don't care about what your opponent's doing. The 1-for-1 removal that your opponent wants to be playing, the, Power the Dark Sides, the Merciless Contests, those types of cards, Takedowns, Fell the Dragons, Rivals Falls, Vanquishes, No Glories, all of that just kind of weak against your deck. Because you got cards like Beloved Orator that, in other decks are kind of like, well, do you really want to be playing that? Or even Outspoken Representative that come down and create multiple units, whether they die or if they just get played. Bail Organa creating more units on attack. Then you have, honestly, with the new set, multiple win cons, right? You have the Unity of Purpose, which is the best by far, coming down and just winning the game, right? You maybe have a command or something that comes in and you ramp into Unity of Purpose a turn earlier, deploy Mon Mothma, you get 2 droids, you get Mon Mothma. Maybe you have a unit or 2 giving you +3/+3 or +4/+4 to every unit on the board, and that's probably enough to just solo the game in of itself. But then you also have Figure of Unity giving you just +1 power to all your other units, and that can be enough alongside Mon Mothma getting in for 5 every single turn to finish out the game as well. But you also have cards like Chancellor Palpatine to generate more units in terms of the double yellow Palpatine, which is something that you couldn't really be playing. That's kind of the dynamic that I really like about this versus like the double green Rex that we were seeing. Yes, Chancellor Palpatine as the 3-cost command unit. This one right here can be played in Rex green as well, but the Rex green doesn't really have all that many amazing new additions from the new sets. But Mon Mothma, on the other hand, I mean, you get to be playing with Bail Organa, Populist Advisor, cards that are going to give you Sentinel, cheap cards that are going to be generating multiple units for you, like Beloved Orator, and which you could also play in Rex green. But, the cards that transcend the aspect boundaries, or even cards like Regional Governor that can be named on cards that really, really disrupt your overall strategy. And the queen of it all, Queen Amidala, a brand new addition to this list as well, giving you 3 bodies, 2 separate unique names attached to them that also can just be a threat on their very own, is an incredible addition to a go wide type of strategy. This is a lot of fun, and this can do some absurd things. Like, there are some matchups where you're loading up against this and you're like, Well, I guess if they have unity of purpose, I just lose. And that's oftentimes how it feels. Unity of purpose is like a win. It's almost like an immediate win against some decks. Like if you just happen to have it, if you play this deck, if you have unity of purpose in your hand, just don't mulligan the hand. Unless it's like absolutely atrocious. But the deck is so well built around the 2-to-1 resource plays. I mean, you're sitting with, what is that? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 17, 19 plus another 7 here. You have 26 turn 1 plays. It is unlikely for you to have nothing to play on turn 1, and if you have a unity of purpose, it is worth it to keep it. The next one is Piett Red, and this one was always one that kind of hovered around, ooh, is Piett going to actually be good, or is this something that is just kind of taking out some wins here and there? Really just big actions that allow you to cut costs on card. It's a good action. I mean, we've seen it with Han. We've seen it with, both Hans, actually. We've seen it with any card that can ramp or consistently give you that discount. Piett does the same thing. And being able to play a 5/5 Raid 1 Overwhelm Space Unit on turn 3 with 4 resources is still good. Or chaining that into a turn 4 Resupply Carrier, getting you the ability to ramp. Or, a turn 5 Devastator. Like, that is gross. And that's without any ramp whatsoever. I mean, you could be doing a turn 4 Invisible Hand, or even a turn 3 Invisible Hand, putting you multiple droids on the battlefield. That's what makes this deck so powerful. We do have a couple new additions. We do have that droid synergy, like I mentioned, with Invisible Hand, create a multiple unit board, which really does work well against control as well. There's a theme with a lot of these lists, guys. Some of them are really good against control, which make it more fun because you don't have those gross matchups where you don't have the ability to do anything. But with the Invisible Hand, you can actually grab Gonk Power Droid, which is a new addition. Giving you that discount can actually do some crazy things. Maybe you just go super wide with a bunch of droids early on, but more often than not, this just gives you a discount on one of the bigger units that you may be able to play. Planetary Bombardment doing that absolute mega burn in certain circumstances. And we also have Fulminatrix, another 8-drop capital ship, giving you that 4 damage to a ground unit, which can really put some pressure on your opponent, especially since it's a 9/7 on its own. You got some board wipes in Turbo Laser Salvo and Overlying Barrage, essentially. Some good big ramp. Getting to play big capital ships is something that a lot of people like doing, and I am one of them. Not to mention being able to, get down things like Invisible Hand and create an immediate massive board is extremely fun, and this guy has some really good things going for him. So we've talked about some space aggro decks already with like Han for Red and then some go wide strategies. Well, we've got another space deck to finish off the list of the top 5 off meta, and that is Poe Green. Now, there are 2 different ways you can really build this guy. You could be building him as a Poe Data Vault, more focused on the space arena with very, 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 very few ground units, with the exception of, in this case, Poe unit. Or you could be building an ECL variant with Poe and Wrecker and maybe some other options if you want to slot in like a K2SO to give you some more power on the ground arena and make it a little bit more aggressive. The Data Vault just allows you to race up against some of the other fast decks in the format. This is basically a pure space list. You're basically going all in on these space units. A really nice addition to this deck is that Sudden Ferocity. We've talked about this with the Han 4, but Sudden Ferocity goes on space units. So having another upgrade that you can deploy when you deploy Poe out is awesome. Absolutely incredible. You could put this on Poe as a unit. You could put him as a, if you decide to pilot this guy, that could be an option. I mean, you can't use it with the action on the front side. You can't, because it's not actually deploying to flip the leader and attach him. But Sudden Ferocity works no matter what. You also have another new addition with Aggressive Negotiations. Because of the ability to use your action all the time with Poe essentially, you oftentimes are left with a decent amount of cards in your hand, maybe 3. And this just gives you, essentially another way to pump in extra damage in this game. You could run 4 Cause, but with the Sudden Ferocity add, you do reduce the amount of damage that it could potentially do. So it kind of depends on the circumstance. We also have Jar Jar. This one I've been running as like a 1 or 2 of. You can definitely pair this with the Sudden Ferocity on Poe deploy to add an additional 5 power to your Poe which can be absolutely incredible just to get in that little bit of extra damage, especially if your opponent's already having to deal with space units. And there are some cool things where you can deploy something like Jar Jar on the Poe right? 2 resources, get the +2/+2. That's 6 power on the Poe Deploy a BB-8, be able to play him as a pilot, as an upgrade, you can pay 2 to ready up resistance units, which can be Poe Dameron. So you ready up the, well, Poe Dameron, get an attack in for another 6 because of Jar Jar. So there's some cool little minor synergies here with this deck, and it can be very aggressive and very devastating. Those are the top 5 off-meta options for players that want to do something just a little bit different. You know, still good, still very, very solid, can be even somewhat semi-competitive, but not quite the top echelon that you're sick of seeing. And there's no Tarkin Towns here. We don't do Tarkin Towns. We're talking off-meta, okay? Okay, there's some data vault. Sure. You got me, okay? But you can run ECL. You can run ECL with Poe Dameron. I prefer to run ECL. I want to hit people. It is what it is. I like my units to have ambush. Thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I'll see you all for the next one.